session 2 by finding out how we build an outstanding school. Dr. Helen Spires, who has joined us from Australia, is a principal at Camilda College in the Northern Territory. She has spent 13 years managing VT programs across the Jabiru region of Australia. She completed her doctorate with research entitled Indigenous Participation in Tertiary Education, Elements of the Instructional Learning Environment Critical for Course Completion. Dr. Helen is currently an active researcher with the School of Education at the Charles Darwin University, where she is examining best practice in secondary maths and science teaching in secondary schools. Let us welcome to the stage Dr. Helen Spires, who will give us a principal's insight into what it all means to build an outstanding school.
Thank you. Good morning. Is this working? Yep. Great. Good morning. As principal of Camilda College, it gives me great pleasure to be here this morning to take you along our first year of our 3-year journey to become an outstanding school. And I thank Dr. Jake for inviting me here today so that I can share with you the passion that I have for Camilda College and what it represents. So what I'm going to do this morning is to give you the context of Camilda College, to let you share the challenges and the insights into what happens at Camilda, and then I'll move on to the journey that we have undertaken to become an outstanding school. Okay, I live in Darwin. Camilda College is in Darwin. It's right at the top of Australia. It's the capital of the Northern Territory, which is one of the states or territories of Australia. It's closer to Asia than it is to the rest of Australia, so a lot of people go north rather than south. Darwin has, as I think it was, yes, Dr. Tina earlier said that it was the Wild West. Well, the Northern Territory is a very large area, but it only has 1% of the Australian population. It has a lot of national parks, a lot of beautiful, pristine areas, one of which is Kakadu National Park, and I spent 17 years in the town of Jabiru, which is at the top end of Kakadu National Park, and worked for a long time with Aboriginal people in Arnhem Land. Closer to Darwin you have Litchfield National Park, and south of that you have Alice Springs and the centre of Australia. It's a modern city. It has lots of growth. Its main source of income is from mining. We have natural gas quite close to the Darwin city. We have major INPEX installations, and we also have live cattle export to Indonesia. Education is one of the marketing points for Darwin because of our closeness to Asia, and my school actually works really closely with 6 schools in Indonesia. We have partnerships, we have MOUs, Memorandum of Understanding, with 6 schools. They send students and teachers to our school, we send students and teachers to their school to share professional knowledge and practice. So it's very much a multicultural area in which to live, and I've been in the Territory nearly 30 years and really enjoy it. Camilda is this little spot over here in blue. It's about halfway between Darwin City, we're on a peninsula, halfway between Darwin City and the satellite town of Palmerston. My school has 650 students and growing. It was a middle school and senior school. We are an international baccalaureate school, so we have the middle years program and the International Baccalaureate Diploma program. We also offer the Northern Territory Certificate of Education and Training at Year 12, 11 and 12 as well. So students have a choice at the end of Year 10 as to which certificate they're going to complete in Year 12. We introduced a primary school this year, T or transition or foundation 5-year-olds through to year 5, because we already had 6 to 10 in middle school. So we introduced a full primary school beginning of this year, so now we are foundation to year 12. 30% of our population, our student population, is Indigenous students from all around the Territory. There's about 40 communities that send their students to Camilda because we are also a boarding school. So I have a boarding facility of 230 students, and we currently have about 188 boarding with us. And as you can understand, if you can appreciate that their parents, the students' parents, live thousands of miles away in other parts of the Northern Territory, top of Western Australia and the top of Queensland. So we have a lot of focus on making sure we have contact and conversations and communication with those parents. So 30% of our student cohort is Indigenous. I'll refer to that a little bit later. Our strategic directions. Camilda College has a mission statement that shows a commitment to excellence, that we want our students to be lifelong learners, and that we want them to develop the courage to shape their future. And we do focus on that in our assemblies and in our times together as in the student council meetings, in any place, any forum where we can talk about future. We talk about that commitment to shaping our future. The long-term objectives for Camilda, that is our strategic plan, is that we, first and foremost, advance our students' learning achievements. And this is one of the reasons I got involved in developing our school into an outstanding school, because most schools do a reasonable job. What I wanted Camilda to do is an outstanding job. So our first long-term objective is to advance their learning. Secondly, that we develop and nurture the well-being and the spiritual life of our students. They are multicultural, they have a variety of backgrounds. We respect that and we work with that and embrace the different lives of our students. Number 3, we focus on building strong engagement with our community. And if you're going to be an outstanding school, you need to have that as a focus as well. So that has involved us in a lot of soul searching. How do we reach those Aboriginal parents who live on communities a long way from our school and who rarely communicate with us by phone or email? And fourthly, we focus on sustainability. And that, as our speakers earlier, this has a wide ranging meaning behind it. And at the moment, we're focusing on our school environment being sustainable. And that's everything from finance through to what we do in the schoolyard and in what we do in the classroom. We registered our school this year as an eco school because our Year 9 students were wanting to do something passionate about our school being more environmentally friendly. So we registered and they've taken off with that whole concept and formed a committee. One of our, the way I see it is that as a school, we seek to empower our staff and students to have the courage to shape their future, to make a difference in the classroom and with each other. And so we do this through a variety of ways. We have a very strong outdoor education program that starts in grade 1 and goes through to year 10. And then after year 10, they can take it as a senior subject. But we find that that is very important in encompassing the concept of risk-taking, of working together. They go on teams. They work in teams when they're on the outdoor education experiences. And we call it experiential learning. And the students know that they're all out about experiencing things that maybe they would never have a chance to do. We also have inquiry-based learning, as those of you who know about the International Baccalaureate, of course we focus on inquiry-based learning. We focus on focus on students having fun in art and in creative works and performing arts and subjects like that. We build partnerships. It's racing ahead. We build partnerships. Where's one? A good one. Okay, the United States Navy often calls in and works with our... I don't know why it's racing ahead. Okay, we'll sit here. Okay. We work with our students to do community service, and we build partnerships with other groups. Must be on a timer. Okay. All right, we'll just stop there for a sec. In terms of, we have lots of memorandum of understanding with groups of people in Darwin and overseas, so that our students can experience real partnerships, real meaningful experiences with external stakeholders and groups. So we get them out of the classroom a lot, they have real life experiences, and we work really hard on our interdisciplinary units of work. So we bring science, maths, humanities, English, we bring them together to have real life experiences. Okay, so that's a little bit of background about Camilda College. What happened was, when I came to school about 8 years ago as deputy principal, and one of the things I noticed was that we were quite good on our national testing, reasonable, a good school. We had some very, very outstanding students, and we had our Indigenous students who were quite low in literacy, English literacy, but we were working on it, and I felt that we were getting somewhere, and we were graduating students from communities at Year 12. So we were sort of setting some benchmarks, and we were meeting those benchmarks. However, last year when I became principal, I thought we need to do more than that. We need to be more than a good school. So what can we do? Okay, let's look at our data. And we've, as was mentioned this morning, we've got various data collections that we can look at. One is the annual NAPLAN, which is the National Assessment Program for Literacy and Numeracy. Every child in Year 3, 5, 7 and 9 undertake these tests in about May, and the results come out around now. They don't help much for the year the students are in, but you can work at improving and working through the gaps for the following year. So, you know, NAPLAN gives you a little bit of data. We also have, for about the past 4 years, undertaken the ACER testing at the beginning of the year, which is the Council of Educational Research in Australia has this online data, online tests, and we use those and we produce this data. So we had lots of data. But when I became principal last year and I looked at that data, I particularly looked at the Aboriginal students and how they were faring. They didn't do very well in the NAPLAN, but that's only a one point in time, so I thought, okay, we can deal with that. But then I had a really good look at our Year 9 Aboriginal students. And only 53% of them were at or above benchmark in numeracy. Only 41% were at or above in writing. 35% at or above in reading. So I thought, well, okay, how do you look at that? Well, they came to our school. Some of them come at Year 8 level with quite low literacy, maybe a grade 3, grade 4 literacy level, because their schooling is very interrupted out on communities. Their focus is not on education in their families. So, you know, you look at that and you go, oh, that's reasonable. Okay, it's only Year 9. Maybe we've got a few more years to have them at school and we'll get them somewhere. But rather than just accept that, I decided that we'd look at the big question of looking at what improvement has this been since Year 7, what learning is taking place, and what strategies can we do to make it even more outstanding than it is. So what we decided to do was that we would find a way forward to have Camilda College go from a good school to an outstanding school. And we looked at the literature. We looked at Lynch and Madden, who said that if you develop teacher inquiry skills, then teacher effectiveness would improve. We looked at Hattie, who was mentioned earlier, that said that schools need to consider teaching in terms of its impact on student learning. We were having those kind of conversations early 2014. But then a wonderful thing happened, and that is that we had a focus in the territory on the collaborative teacher learning model. And Professor David Lynch came to Darwin and offered a seminar for principals to have a look at teacher capacity, teacher effectiveness around Hattie, but more than Hattie and what he professed. So I attended this, and it was just at the right time for us because we were trying to build teacher capacity. We were trying to measure the effectiveness of teaching and learning. And I had a really supportive senior management team who were interested in doing something, but what? So by attending this seminar, I learnt about the project that had gone on in Queensland. I learnt about the steps towards making an outstanding school. So I went back to my school and I talked to my senior management staff, and we were really supportive of 2015 being a focus on student learning. I work with the school board, the college board, that encompasses about 12 people that come from both the Uniting Church and the Anglican Church. And I did a presentation to them to get their support, because some of our funding for 2015, some of our professional learning or professional development time had to be on this focus, and I needed their support for that. So I was very pleased to receive full support from my college board for student learning and teacher effectiveness to be our focus in 2015. I had the focus of the board, I had the support of the board, I had the support of the senior managers, but how was I going to get to everybody else? Now, when you've got a school that's an independent school, you've got more than your leader, you've got more than your senior managers. You've got all the teachers, I've got about 85 teachers. You've got all the parent body over here. Now, the parents, 70% are in Darwin. That's not too hard to get to. They're all on email. Most of them have got mobile phones. So we can communicate, we can run 2-minute surveys, we do all sorts of things to keep in touch. But what about the 30% who are out in communities, thousands of miles away? Some of them right down past Alice Springs. It takes me, 2 full days to drive to Alice Springs in a car? So, it's not easy to communicate with people who are wandering around in the desert and not really paying much attention to Camilda College. They send their child off at the beginning of term and they just say, the school will sort them and we'll pick them up at the end of term. How was I going to communicate with those parents? So those kind of dilemmas we tossed around and worked through some strategies to overcome that. But I needed to think about the people involved in becoming an outstanding school. And that's the point, I think. You have to use 2 things. One is psychology. You have to think about people. You have to think about how they behave, what motivates them, and this includes students and parents and community, because you're trying to build partnership with community as well. And you have to think about people. So you have to be thinking about the psychology of people, and you have to be networking and building people's expectations and commitment to the cause. So much of 2015 has been involved in that. I have lots of meetings with people, external stakeholders to the school. I travel to communities with other staff. We have a full 41-week program of visiting communities, because I have 40 plus communities they come from, so we do a lot of travelling to get to communities, talk to parents about what we're doing and why we're doing it. The staff decided to focus on literacy in 2015, but they didn't want to leave it there. They wanted to move on to numeracy next year. So we've started a 3-year project with Professor Lynch with numeracy this year, but next year we'll start the whole thing again with literacy this year and start the whole thing next year with numeracy. So the staff are looking at a 4-year program, a project. One of the ways I feel that we got the commitment from staff was that they actually renamed the project. So when I started talking about the collaborative teacher learning model and how we were going to work with Professor Lynch's staff from the university, they decided they wanted to rename it to give it their own. They wanted to own it. They wanted to own that topic, that notion, that project. So they called it the Cross-Curricular Literacy Project. And they wrote out the aims. We had a number of sessions together. Professor Lynch came and led some sessions. We had some sessions after he left. And it was all about improving student literacy, building teacher capacity, and developing professional learning communities. By that I mean groups of staff being willing to spend the time to talk and collaborate about what they're doing in class and about how you can move the students forward in their literacy development from wherever they are. So you've got an Aboriginal student who is at this level, you want to move them to this level by next year and further the year after. You've got a student in Year 5 who's brilliant, you need to move him or her along next year and then the next year more. It doesn't matter where they are on the continuum of learning, which is what I talk to our staff about. Because we have the diverse students from low literacy up to top IB students, you have to think about it in terms of their individual journey and about them improving every year. And that improvement has to be measured, and the teachers have to be accountable for that. And that's the process that we've developed, or the focus we've developed for this year. What have been the challenges? What do you think the challenges might have been? Can anyone suggest any? What's the challenges in trying to bring the staff together in a project that is about literacy development? Yes?
Perhaps leading change.
Yes? Leading change. So you have to know the theory behind leading change. Yes, anything else? Sorry? Time. Yep, time. Okay, we're all teachers. I've been a teacher all my life. I'm a secondary maths teacher, but, you know, my kids don't like me to say that because that's a bit, you know, nerdy. So, but we've all been teachers, or we are teachers, and I had to think in terms of psychology of a current practicing teacher, because the last time I taught was 2 years ago. I was teaching Year 8 maths. Love Year 8s, they're great. But when I became principal, I needed time to travel, and you can't justify that. So in my mind, I was okay saying, all right, I'm going to travel for a couple of years, make sure I meet all the parents of our Aboriginal students. That was more important to me than teaching Year 8 maths, which at the time was a disappointment, but I've had to do that. Now, I had to think, what bothers a teacher? A teacher has a life after school, right? We have to realise that teachers are not there just for us, leaders. I'd like them to be, but they do have a life. So I have to think how they're going to manage their personal life and their professional life, and then still have time for a project that is ongoing. It is about their lifelong learning as well. So what I did was I said to the staff, here's our meeting schedule. We've got a meeting schedule, you know, week 2 of term 3 we meet and we do this, or every term, week 6, I meet with parents on a thing called Parent Consultative Group. All teachers meet Monday after school on weeks 2, 4, 6 and 8 of every term for an academic staff meeting. Right, we had the meeting schedule. So I said, here's the meeting schedule, work out what we need to replace, what we need to cut out and put in there some collaboration time. So I need you to collaborate on this. But I don't want it to be an add-on, I want it to be an instead of. And that was the main thing I had to get across to staff was that, another project that the principal wants to do. No, this is about change from within. This is about improving student learning, but it is an instead of, not an add-on for your time. So they took ownership of the meeting schedule and they came back to me with a revamped meeting schedule. No extra time in meetings, just a change in how they spent their time. Okay? So in terms of challenges, yes, as we've mentioned before, the commitment, point number 3, commitment from the teachers to see this as an instead of rather than an add-on. But going up to the top, appropriate and regular relevant communication. Communication is really important, and by that I mean communication between staff, communication between the team that are implementing the change, communication with families so that they support what's happening in the classroom. And to do that, I had to think about how our school was structured. And we always had faculties, so you might call them departments here, but we had science and we had maths and we had humanities and we had languages. I wasn't happy with the minimum amount of collaboration that was happening between faculties last year. It was, people feel an allegiance, a loyalty to their faculty. I'm a maths teacher, I attend the maths staff meetings, I enjoy talking with my maths peers, but I don't really know what's happening over in English, and I don't particularly want to know, because they're the English teachers, okay? I'm over here. So, because of a number of things that were happening, like maternity leave, voluntary redundancies, all sorts of things that were happening at the school at the time, I actually wiped out the heads of faculty for 12 months. I said, no heads of faculty now. Let's think about ourselves as professional teachers. And that unsettled a lot of people because they didn't have anyone to tell them what to do. But as a professional teacher, you don't need people to tell you what to do. You have to know what you're doing. So we started the conversations with groups of people at year levels. So I said, let's get some year level teachers together. So we have a year 8 group, we have a year 9 group, we have a year 10 group. We have groups of teachers, they're in multiple levels of course because they teach across year levels, but you're a member of a year level team. And that year level team can move mountains with those students in that year level, because by talking to each other, you all know what's going on. So if I'm a year 8 maths teacher, I know what's happening in year 8 science because we meet regularly. And we talk about, oh, I'm having trouble working out this, oh, I could do that in my maths and that would help you in your science lesson if I taught that bit and would support your teaching. And by talking at year level, we have a lot more collaboration, we have a lot more interdisciplinary units developing, and teachers are starting to take ownership of their own practice and not going to other people and saying, tell me what to do. What's my unit planner say? What am I supposed to teach? Well, you should know that. You should know what's going on in your subject area from year 1 to year 10. And that's taken a bit of a mindset change, and I'm happy to report that the staff are reasonably happy with that now, and they haven't I had a very good session recently where we held a workshop on a Saturday morning. They wanted it Saturday morning because they wanted to get away from the school timetable, etc., and just focus on where we're at now. And there was some really good feedback on the way that the year level groups are working. So I'm reintroducing the heads of faculty now for 2016, and the staff are getting used to the idea that they're going to be a member of a horizontal year level group, but they'll also be a member of a vertical group in terms of their subject area. So if I'm teaching maths in year 8, 9 and 10, I'll be a member of the maths faculty so that we can share high-level experiences, high-level subject area conversations. But I'm also in the horizontal year level teams where we're actually talking about what's happening in the classroom. What are our students learning, and how can we extend what they're learning? How can we differentiate what they're learning according to their needs? And so that's one of the challenges that we've tried to meet. Ongoing commitment from middle managers. Again, that came about through asking for volunteers to be part of the leadership team to implement the project. And from each middle manager, we have a circle of influence, we call it. So we have staff who regularly communicate with them about the project and where we're at in the stages of our project. Finding time, we found time for developing those professional learning communities, because that's what the conversation is. At the year level, when we're talking about our students in the class, we're all teaching the same students at year 8, at year 9, etc. And we have those professional learning times when we share what we're doing. And what we're on currently is our creating the writing task. That is part of our next step, which is a common task that all students will be completing, so that we can go from our ACER, our standardised testing that we did earlier in the year, we can now focus on their literacy, and that's what we're doing in Term 4. And all staff, even staff who don't see themselves involved in literacy, well, they do now, but they didn't originally. If you're a science teacher or a maths teacher, we don't have anything to do with literacy. Yes, you do, actually. So we're all working together on developing these writing tasks. And I'd like to end on the exciting outcomes that we've actually experienced. Everyone's talking about literacy in the school. Everyone's talking about teacher effect, because Hattie and his philosophy and his research has all come into our learning circle, our learning community conversations. Everyone's talking about data, because they've all got it now, and the teachers are stepping up and taking the lead. So it's been a really exciting year, and we've made lots of structural changes, but I'm hoping that the point that I make when I run the induction program for new staff, I say to them, when you come to Camilda, you will come with a set of skills, you will come with knowledge, and you will come with a way of working with people. When you leave, I want all of those to be improved. I want you to really know how to work together. I want you to really know how to use data. And I want you to be a greater teacher because you've been at an outstanding school. Thanks very much.